Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Tim from Timber Ridge Gifts. So I've had a lot of people ask me to do a video about wax melts. So this is going to be the how-to video for wax melts. It's basically pretty much the same concept as melting and pouring candles. Just a few differences as far as the equipment and the type of wax that we're going to use. So let's go ahead and start and go over a few of those differences. Now the biggest thing that a lot of people ask me is which wax to use. We have several different choices here. We've got our paraffin wax, we've got a parasoy blend, which is paraffin and soy wax blended, which is mainly what people use for votives and tarts. And we have our good old Golden Brands 464. As far as the paraffin goes, I wouldn't generally use this in a wax melt, just because it doesn't hold the scent, the fragrance as well. And after it sits in a burner for a while, if somebody has a particularly hot burner, it's going to start to burn and give off that melted plastic smell. So as far as the main body of our wax melt, we're not going to use this. I will use that if I'm doing a bunch of different decorative embeds to decorate the candles with, or to decorate the wax melts with, something like this. You can put those embeds on top and make it look a lot prettier. But for the most part, that's all we're going to use that for. Next is the parasoy blend. This is paraffin and soy blended. Like I said, this is made specifically for wax tarts. This is great to use. It'll hold the fragrance well. Only problem is it's a little pricey, so it's not gonna go as far as if you're using the 464. Alright, like I said, here we have the 464. I like to use this for most of my projects just because I like the way it works. It holds the scent very well. It's got a great cold scent throw as well as a hot scent throw, and I just love the way it performs. The problem you're going to have with this though is if you're using this in a wax melt, 464 is really soft. So depending on what type of wax melt you have, the customer's going to have a problem getting the tart actually out of the container, just because this is so soft. Especially if it's a hot day, it's just going to be just a soft mush trying to get it out of there. The way we can fix that is, the way I do mine, is I'll actually combine these two. I'll combine the 464 and the parasoy blend. Just to use this mainly because I like the way it performs, and I can stretch my materials a lot further. But we also need this because it does have the paraffin in there, which is gonna make this a little bit harder, so people can actually get it out of there. So what I do is, as I'm combining my waxes, I've already got my wax combined for the melt we're gonna do today. But what I'll do is, for every pound of wax that I'm gonna use, I will use 14 ounces of 464 and 2 ounces of the parasoy blend. So in this particular melt we're going to do today, I've got 3 pounds. So I've actually got 2 pounds, 10 ounces of the 464 and 6 ounces of the parasoy. So that covers wax. The rest is just your basic candle supplies. You've got whatever fragrance oil you choose to use and whatever dye you choose to use. So set those aside. Now the great thing about making wax melts is they give us a little bit more freedom to be able to, we can be more creative with them. Reason being is we don't have to worry as much about performance issues. Like with a candle, you can only add so much fragrance oil, so much dye before it starts clogging the wick. You can't add any flammable additives, obviously, because such as glitter or candy sprinkles, because that creates a fire hazard, which could lead to a failure of your candle. But with a wax melt, it's not exposed to a direct flame, so we don't have to worry about clogging a wick. So we can generally dump a little bit more fragrance oil into that wax melt than we can our candle. Like, say the max we can get on a candle is maybe a 12% fragrance load. With the wax melt, we can go a whole lot higher than that. We can get a lot better colors because we can dump more candle dye in there, and we don't have to worry about clogging the wick. And the sky's the limits as far as how we want to decorate them. I'll show you some of mine once we get going. But, like I said, you can add mica to it. We can add candy sprinkles and glitter galore. So we'll set all that aside. We've got everything mixed up. We're going to go ahead and melt down and move on to the next part of this. Okay, so we got everything melted down, transferred to our pouring pitcher. Just like any other time, we melted down to about 175. We're cooled now to about 165, so we're going to go ahead and add our fragrance oil. Like I said earlier, because we're not making a candle, it gives us a little bit more freedom to add more fragrance oil because we don't have to worry about performance issues. So for a normal candle where I might go to a 12% fragrance load, for this wax melt we're actually going to be using a 15% fragrance load. I'm not going to take the time in this video to go through the math in that one, but if you don't know what that means, just check out my tips and tricks video. I actually break down and explain the formula that shows how you can determine your fragrance load. But for now, this one's 15%. We're going to go ahead and add our fragrance oil. Set that aside, and while that's cooling, we're going to go ahead and get set up and get ready to pour. Okay, so probably the second biggest question I get asked is what temperature to pour at. Now, when you're working with soy, especially 464, frosting is going to be a big issue. If you're not familiar with that word, just check out the tips and tricks video. I explained a lot more there. But most of us know what that is. Frosting is one of the biggest causes of it is your wax cooling too fast. That especially becomes a bigger problem when you're working with such a small container. So to help fix that a little bit, we're going to pour at a much lower temperature. For this size, I'm actually going to pour at about 120. And I'll list all these in the description. But we've cooled down to about 120. We've got our fragrance oil added. We're ready to pour. Because we're pouring into such a small container, this one's just a little bit too bulky. You're going to end up making a mess. So what I like to do is just transfer into a smaller funnel pitcher. And that's all there is to that. I just kind of eyeball these. These containers I use have a small rim at the top. So I've been doing this enough that I know that's going to put me right at about 1.95 ounces, which I market these as 2 ounces. So that gets me close enough. A lot of people will actually put these on a scale and measure them. But I make so many at a time, I just don't have time for that. So we're going to finish pouring these. We're going to let them cool. And I'm going to show you the last step. Okay, so these are all cool. They're ready to decorate. Before we get to that, let me show you just an example of some of the other decorations we can do. Like I said earlier, one of the great things about the wax melts is they're not going to go on a flame, so we can use a lot of different things to decorate them. These are some of the ones I do. We've got glitter, mica, candy sprinkles, embeds. Just so many different things you can do to actually decorate these and make them more attractive for your customers, or for yourself, or for family and friends if you give them away as gifts. Let's show you what we're going to do to decorate them. Okay, so these are all cool. They're ready to decorate. These are strawberry scented, so what we're going to do is we're going to add some black glitter to the top, kind of give it that effect of strawberry seeds on top. We couldn't have added these up till now because the glitter would have just sank to the bottom. So we've got to wait till it hardens. What we can do now is just take our heat gun, just barely melt the top layer. You got to be really careful because these portion containers will melt. We'll just lightly use the heat gun on top, get that top layer melted. We'll be able to add our glitter, let that cool, and it'll be finished. It's going to look something like this. Okay, so we're only going to do a few at a time. We've got that top layer melted. Okay, and we'll just finish up the batch here in a minute. But this is what our finished product's going to look like. Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, everything that I did and talked about, I'm gonna put it in the description. So if you didn't quite understand something, you can read about it. Feel free to add in the comments, ask me any questions you like. A lot of people actually look up my Etsy shop and send me questions that way. That's fine. But if you want to put it in the comments so everybody else can see the answer, that'd be cool too. But thanks for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe and check out all the rest of my videos and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, y'all.